Welcome to another episode on the challenges and triumph of online teaching during COVID-19 at the Female Educators Roundtable with your host, Debby Enoe from Teacher Success Coach, and another one of my guests from the US. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I do have to apologize to you guys. Yet again, it's trying to get on, and it appears as if I am frozen. Am I frozen? Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I don't know if that matters, but I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Introduce yourself, please, to the audience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa Hayward. I am an educator of 9 years in the U.S. I currently teach on Long Island in New York. And I'm a mom of 3, which I guess we'll talk about later when we talk about the challenges of
Yes.
teaching during COVID. I'm a mom of 3. I have a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 7-year-old.
Oh,
So
Lord.
yes, I know.
Challenge.
I know.
Oh my goodness. Thank you very much.
Yes.
That in itself is a challenge.
Yes, it is. And I also have a Facebook group called Teaching During COVID that I started to lift the weight of educators so that they could hear from other educators how they were teaching during COVID. And we could share ideas with each other and learn and grow as a group.
Okay, thank
So
you. Can you put the link in there? Can you put the link or send me the link later on so we could actually add the link, because that's fantastic. Thank you for that. I keep on freezing on my screen. So many challenges.
The challenges, yes.
Exactly, isn't it? Oh, these are some of the things we faced on a daily basis while we were teaching online during COVID.
Yes.
Sometimes you get kicked out, and
Yes.
you away. When you come back, you get half the class.
Right.
Challenges never stop.
Never.
Yeah, it's really but in the end of it, we have learned a number of skills which we have to be grateful for, because we would not have learned the skills ordinarily, because that was not part of our agenda right now.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Okay. Would you like to tell us some of the challenges that you experienced during COVID when you're teaching online? And how, oh my goodness, how did it actually how did it make you feel in terms of competent, not competent, etc.? So if you just start oh my goodness, sharing some of these experiences.
Okay. So teaching during COVID was initially it was scary. It was a scary time for not only educators but the entire world. And educators were kind of thrown into a different world of teaching. We had to do things in a different way, and we had to do them quickly. So from my perspective, it was difficult. Some of the challenges that I ran into were the technology aspect of teaching. Not only just the internet not working properly or getting kicked out of Zoom, but my parents. I had some parents that were not familiar with Zoom or how to log their students on to Zoom or how to keep up with passwords, because different teachers had different meeting IDs and numbers and passwords. So you also had to deal with parents and helping them to become organized and keeping up with information so that their child could be successful logging into Zoom, because we use the Zoom platform in my school district as a way to continue education. We made a commitment as a school to not only continue learning with the parents, with the students, but also we made a commitment to parents to make sure that they were informed and they knew how to get on these platforms as well. So some of the challenges were with technology. Some of them were just mental challenges with students who had lost family members and who had parents who were sick. So I had to quickly learn that it wasn't just about math and science and ELA. I had to check on them because rather than saying, "Why weren't you in Zoom class on Monday?" Checking in to find out like the reason behind it. And I found out that one of my students had a mother and father with COVID. So, and even in the process, she was still logging onto Zoom by herself attempting to push through these lessons. So the social and emotional aspect of teaching online as well was a challenge because you really had to be sincere and considerate when when teaching on a whole new level. As educators, we already want to tap into the lives of our students and show them that we love them and care about them by showing love for their family and what's going on in their life. But during COVID, it was on a different level. You really had to be extra loving, extra caring, have like not 2 ears, but 3 ears to listen more and speak less. So that was a challenge, but it was also a triumph as well because it gave me an opportunity to showcase love for my students, and not only my students but my parents, and it gave me an opportunity to learn them on a deeper level, learn about them and what's going on in their homes and their household, what they were willing to share and to tell me. So yeah, it was a lot initially, but like I said, the push through, the I can't even talk about the challenges without talking about the triumphs because even as I'm talking about all of the things that went wrong, I have a big smile in the inside of me because for everything that went wrong, something went amazingly well. So I had to prepare lessons and I had to learn Zoom, which meant I was showing my students how to become critical thinkers and innovative. What I want them to be anyway, I was doing it myself. And I shared it with them. I have no idea how to use Zoom. I had to research, I had to YouTube, I had to learn how to share a screen. I had to learn how to do virtual field trips and researching who was giving virtual field trips. It was so much more in education that it was a different world. And I was teaching my students through my actions how to be innovative and how to be a critical thinker. So that was a plus to it. They got to see it in action and as well with them. So and the relationships that were built with the parents, as I've already said, and the students, it was on a different level. That was a triumph for me with teaching during COVID and the creativity of it all. Like I was able to tap into creativity that I didn't even know I still had. It was definitely after teaching 9 years, you get accustomed to doing things a certain way. But when you're tossed into the Zoom world and to the virtual learning experience, you have to be crafty and creative and think of ways in which you can keep your students' attention and trying to not make Zoom the classroom, but make Zoom Zoom and think of different ways to where you can create systems of encouragement for students. In class, I could pat them on the back or give them a point for having a growth mindset. On the internet, I couldn't touch my kids. So I had to figure out a different way to encourage them verbally or using different systems through Zoom. So like I said, it was a challenge, but for every challenge, there was a positive outcome that went along with that challenge.
Fantastic. Thank you. You say you did different ways of praising them, because in the classroom, as we all know, we're gonna say "well done," pat on the back, or something like that. So what did you do instead? Because you
So,
had to be creative.
right. So I created, I used Class Dojo, and I didn't use Class Dojo in my classroom for points. I used I used a growth mindset, because and students got points not only for good behavior, but they got points for having a growth mindset. Because like I said, I wanted to teach my students how to become critical thinkers, how to think on their own, how to motivate them, because a lot of students lack motivation. So I was more focused on not giving them points because they were quiet when I was speaking, but giving them points when they asked why, or when they wanted to go deeper into a topic, or they asked a question that showed me that they were thinking on a critical level, or for interpersonal relationships, if they were showing compassion to their classmate, they got points. So that was, or asking questions with the classmate, or having a discussion with the classmate. So in taking or transforming that mindset to Zoom, I couldn't give them the points that I would give them in class. Like I called them growth mindset sticks, and I would give them one when I saw them having a growth mindset, like not wanting to give up. And so, and pushing through challenges. So when I saw that online, I said I had to figure out a way. So I actually used Class Dojo, and I would share my screen with the students. And if during our Zoom lesson they did something that was amazing, or they asked a question, or they answered another student's question, or they struggled through a difficult problem and didn't give up, I would give them points on Class Dojo, where they had each of their names, and they would get points. And if I was not sharing, if I was sharing my screen to show content, and I did not have the screen up for Class Dojo, and I would just jot down who got a point, at the end of class they would go, "Oh, Miss Hayward, you forgot to give me my point. I need my point, please." And so and it was so it
Fantastic.
was, yes, and it gave them something to work for. And in my regular classroom, I actually have a store where the students can purchase things in the store. I have like little toys, pencils, chips, things like that, where they could take their growth mindset points and buy things. I didn't even have that for the online platform. It was just the motivation itself of hearing that little ding and getting those points. They knew they weren't going to be able to go to the store with the points because we weren't in school. It was still motivating for them, though. It was still they were still motivated to push to get these dojo points for being a critical thinker, for having a growth mindset.
Thank you. Wow. That's good, because you also meant that they kept reminding you when you forgot.
Yes,
So that it means
all the time.
exactly. So it was important to them, which is a real plus.
Yes,
You know.
they had I had the buy-in from them, definitely.
Yeah, which is good. Thank you. How did the online platform make you feel as an individual? As an individual, as a teacher, so these are two. How did it, teaching on the online platform? Because as an educator, it restricts you. So how did it make you feel? What was the emotion that was coming out?
So I was initially, I had like a couple of different emotions. Initially, in the beginning, when I had an opportunity to see my students' faces, that made me feel good, because with Zoom, it's you're able to connect with your students. So at least I was able to see their face. So I felt that warmed my heart, that I could see them, know that they were doing okay,
Yeah.
and interact with them. But as the time went on, I felt myself like needing more. Like I wanted to touch them. I wanted to see them. I wanted to hug them. I wanted to interact with them on a deeper level. So that's when the kind of the sadness came in, because um looking at education now, like I'm a teacher. I touch my students.
Mm-hmm.
I rub their head, I rub their hair, I hug them every morning before they come into the classroom. And as time went on with COVID and learning more about COVID, the touching aspect of the classroom, I feel like it wasn't going to be there. So what turned out is like a temporary situation where I was satisfied, like having a meeting with them on Zoom. I was like, okay, because I'll soon see my students again and I'll be able to touch them. But as time went on, it began to like weigh heavy on me, because I began to realize that that part of teaching is going to be different. And I was going to have to make adjustments to that part. So that part saddened me. Like I'm happy that I could see my students using the Zoom platform, but then I'm also a little saddened by the fact that this may be like the new way of reaching students, when I'm such like a touchy-feely person, and I feel that kids need that. They need that touch. And so I still struggle with that today, even if we go back to school and in September, I'm struggling with the idea that we won't be able to physically touch our students without the fear of spreading COVID. So it's a lot. It still weighs heavy on me, and I'm sure it weighs heavy on other educators, especially those educators of the lower elementary.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the age group do you teach?
I teach the elementary level. Last year I taught a 3rd grade group, and next year I'll be teaching a 5th grade group.
Right, but what's the age? Because in England we have different. We don't have.
So I'm sorry. So 3rd graders are like they're 8, maybe 8, 7, 8.
Okay.
And then so they were like 7, 8-year-olds that
Those
and
are
one of the students actually, because during COVID we talked about like what you miss most about school. And so one of my students said, "Oh, I miss the morning hugs." And I couldn't even say to her that, well, in the fall when we come back, we'll get back to that. Like we can hug again. And that part weighs heavy on me, because I was like, I miss them too. And it was no resolution to it. It was no like this is gonna get better in that aspect. I couldn't make that promise to her that I would be there to hug her in the fall.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. It's interesting because in my head, when you were talking about that, I'm thinking, yes, it must be the older group, the younger group, because those are the ones that much more touchy-feely than the teenagers. Those are the ones that needs a lot of reassurance more than the teenagers. So teaching that young group is really, it could be quite emotional.
Right.
When you're not able to, when you're actually going into your classroom and you can no longer hug these children.
Right.
And they don't, because a lot of them cannot comprehend, why can I not hug you at all, So that is quite challenging, especially for educators who teach in that group.
Yeah.
It really is,
yeah.
I don't know. I really, it's like back in September, some of the teachers that teach this younger group, I don't even know how you're going to be saying to the children when they're actually automatically running to engage with the new teacher.
Right.
It's
difficult. And I've had students to come in the morning and they've had like a rough night with things that have happened at home and so we don't talk about what happened most of the time. They just hug me and cry. And and that's their way of getting that out. So that part of teaching is the educational aspect is extremely important. The emotional part is as well. And that's the part that educators are going to have to find loopholes around and find different ways to show students that they love and care for them
Mhm.
without necessarily touching them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's going to be hard. We are all, as this progresses, we actually identify new creative and innovative way of doing things. So
Right.
I am sure we're going to find some innovative way of of connecting, the
Yes.
virtual hug, etc. Because
Right.
we quite innovative individuals. We have no choice than to be innovative and creative,
That's
as
right.
this platform have demonstrated to us. Thank you for that. In terms of, as an educator, how did it make you feel on an academic basis?
Wow. So I initially panicked because I'm like, oh my gosh, these kids are not going to get what they need for third grade. I'm going to leave them and not finish the curriculum for third grade. That was my initial response. And so I worked really hard to give them as much as I could, teaching new content. We continued in our school district, we continued with content. So we moved right along. Yes, like we moved right along. I continued teaching them through Zoom. I gave them assignments. Parents took pictures of assignments and text them to me so that I could check them and give them feedback. We did whatever was necessary to make sure that the kids were getting what they needed academically, but it was still not the same as 5 days a week in a classroom setting.
Yeah.
So I struggled with it, and then I began to realize that this was not a Long Island issue. This was not a my district issue. This was not a United States issue. This was a world issue. All kids everywhere were going to be a couple of steps behind. We weren't the only school district. I wasn't the only teacher that was not going to finish the curriculum for that school year. So when I realized that, I began to panic a little less and just really got in the mindset of understanding that I'm doing the best that I can do with what I have. And I gave my students what I could give them. And I did the best that I could with it. And so I can comfortably say that we finished the school year on knowing that, or I finished the school year knowing that I gave my students my best academically. As we moved on, we read. I learned how to share books with them online. I learned different platforms. We used Epic Books for them to read. I could track their reading. We used so many different platforms for learning where I could track what they were doing. Um, and these were different. This wasn't what I would have done in a regular school day. So in some aspects, the kids got a little bit more as far as like the technology aspect is concerned than they would have. Normally they have the written homework. Now they had to now they were having to learn like computer based assignments. So I can also say this as an educator, like as far as the academics of everything, sometimes like we are so focused on them learning like math and science and ELA and social studies that we totally miss the idea that our students are now able to log on to Zoom. They're now able to share a screen. They know how to, they know how to maneuver Epic Books. They know how all of these platforms that we use, that we brought into their lives. We use Schoology and like all of these different things now. These kids are maneuvering through them. Microsoft Teams and Google Classrooms, where they were only used in a classroom for minimal assignments. They became the sole piece that educators relied on to communicate with their students.
Yeah.
Not only did we grow, they grew in that area as well.
Yep.
So I feel like we're so hard on ourselves as educators, and we have this list, this checkoff list of like what students should learn and what they should be learning, and we totally miss some of the brilliance that's taking place like right before us.
Yeah.
Like totally miss the idea Yes, no, kids cannot sit with their classmate and talk with them. But then you have a flip grid where students can like talk and communicate with each other on an online.
Mm.
So it's just, and they're learning that, and they picked up on it so
That's
so
right.
fast,
Yeah.
so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so very true. The fact that we constantly forget that this is a relationship of the student and the educator. So therefore, there are things learned on both sides.
Yes.
We completely forget that. It's interesting, when you said, I think, oh yes, I forgot that aspect of it. I forgot the aspect of it. You remember and then you forget again because
Exactly.
so busy focusing on getting the knowledge to them, you forget in terms of how much they've actually learned being on the
Yes.
platform, not only academically, creatively as well.
Right.
That's the thing about it, because one educator was sharing with me that she actually gave them something to do and she realized they were not doing it. So she said to them, okay, whatever method you want to present it on, do so. And she said they came back with so many creative skills of
Wow.
presenting that work. Some
Wow.
some use the digital platform, some use the singing, some use the oh gosh, my mind's gone. It's like all these different platforms they actually utilize and presented the work. And she
Yes.
said she had completely missed it, that these
Yes.
students are so creative.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
important that we allow them to demonstrate their creativity, because as we know, school is very I do feel that school really stop the creativity of students.
Mm-hmm.
It really squash it. Whereas on this online platform, it allows them to thrive and it
Yes.
allows them to blossom.
Yep.
It's like a flower really blossoming.
Right.
And some students have actually became the flower and blossom, and some didn't.
Right.
And I think that as educator, we need to give them that opportunity to blossom,
Yes.
because it is possible.
Yes.
Because being in the physical classroom, we are restricted at what we are capable of doing, or we restrict ourselves because we do things in a mundane fashion. But when we
Exactly.
actually came onto this platform, we had no choice than to be extremely innovative and creative.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know
Yeah. And it's
yeah.
like you just said, if I'm teaching a lesson about China, if we're all online, let's go to China. Let's check it out. Let's go. Let's what I mean, it's more,
Yeah.
you have so much that you can do. Yes, there are negative aspects to it, but there
Yeah.
are also so many
Yeah.
ways in which you can really, really, really bring that creativity and that the out of students. So
Yeah.
yes, and I like the idea that like giving them the opportunity to do an assignment the way they see fit.
Yeah.
Like that's what we want. Like I feel like as a group of students, like these, like a generation of students, I feel like we missed the mark with
Mhm.
making them self,
Yes.
like thinkers, like
Yeah.
and being innovative, and
Yeah.
like it's okay to do things differently, because we are so like mundane, like this is the way that we're going to do it, this is the way that we've always done it. And so this kind of pushed educators into a new realm of like doing things differently and moving them out of their comfort zone. If you let it, as an educator, you had an opportunity to see your students in a different light.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is so very true. Thank you for that. And it really, we had no choice. We were forced, because if we had a choice, there is no way the majority of educators would have opted for an online platform.
no,
There's no way. There's no way. And I
no,
think this was because I also feel that in education, we need a shift. I keep on saying in every session that Every industry have shifted when it comes to technology and using the online space and using technology to maximize learning
Yes.
and innovation and creativity in the education sector that have not happened.
Right.
So thanks COVID for actually pushing us out of our comfort zone.
Right.
And on the other side of the comfort zone, there are the treasures
Right.
and the creative skills.
Exactly. We're kind of dipping our toe in technology,
Yeah,
but we were not forced to like dive in like we were
exactly.
during COVID. We kind of dipped in a little bit. We
And come
have
back out.
kids. Yes, like dip in, come back out, have
Yeah,
kids work on, during
yeah,
class, they may
yeah,
do some type of online thing where
yeah,
they're learning online, but then we quickly pull them back out so that they can
exactly.
rely on us a little bit more. And
Yeah,
I mean, you're absolutely right. It pushed us, the being uncomfortable sometimes creates growth. So
yes,
like if you're
yes,
uncomfortable, more than likely you're growing.
yeah,
So in whatever area of your life.
yeah,
So being uncomfortable for me, and not always being happy with the way things went during COVID allowed me to grow as an educator, as a mom, as a person.
mm,
The uncomfortableness of it
yeah,
all it wasn't all so bad.
yeah,
It brought about a new me in
mm,
so many different areas of my life.
yeah. I could share that. And I feel that any educator who have failed to accept and embrace the positive aspect of it is actually failing themselves. Because as much as there were challenges, hell, there were lots of triumph.
Yes,
There were
definitely.
lots of triumph. And we know that there is always negative and positive, but it's up to you to embrace the positive and maximize it.
Yes, definitely.
And for me, oh my goodness, I have grown tenfold.
Yeah.
What there have been a lot of frustration, a
Yes.
lot of challenges, a lot of annoyance, a lot of questioning, a lot of hell. What's
Yes.
this all about? And losing the work and not
Yes.
being able to go on when you're supposed to go on, even though you started logging on half an hour
Yes.
before due time. In the end of it, it another thing is I have actually developed a lot of patience. But this have even taught me even how to be even more patient
Yes. Exactly. Yes. Yes.
and just breathe easy.
Yep.
It's like just now trying to come on and having all these challenges, and I remind myself, look, you cannot hasten this computer. You were trying to get on half past before you started.
Yeah.
It's just doing its own thing. Just breathe easy and allow it to do its own thing. There is no point
Right.
in me becoming stressed. It's not going to fasten the process.
Nope.
That's what is actually taught us. And in terms of also differentiation, I keep on mentioning that in our session. It actually taught us in terms of differentiation so much more
Yeah.
because as much as we differentiate in the classroom, we were not able to differentiate on an individual student basis.
Mm-mm.
We looked at it at the majority of the time, one size fit all.
Right.
However, this online platform have forced us, and the students have also been making either conscious or unconscious decision to be innovative and also to
Right.
demonstrate differentiation because they're
Yeah.
deciding that I am not going to come on at 9 o'clock. Hell no, because I'm staying in my bed.
Yes.
They're saying I need a little extra sleep. They're also saying that I am not going to put my camera on. I don't care what Miss says. She could
Oh,
be doing it as much as she wants. She can't tell me to do it, and she cannot force me to do it.
no.
Right?
Yes. I had that. I'm all in class. Turn your camera on. I need to see your face, please. Turn your camera on. And I actually had I stayed up late one night because when I would share my screen, one of my students were writing on the screen, and I never knew how to figure out who was writing on the screen. So I was doing a math problem or whatever, and somebody would scribble across the screen, and I would go, guys, please don't do that. Like, I know you think it's funny, but it's irritating Mrs. Hayward. Please don't do that. And so I was like, there has to be a way for me to figure out who's doing this. So here I am with my computer, 1 o'clock in the morning after I put my children to sleep, researching, watching YouTube videos on how to figure out Zoom. I had to figure this out on my own. I did not have training. And so the next day I figured it out. And as they scribbled, their names popped up. So I would say to them, John, I see you. Erase the mark you made, and their faces were like, oh my God, like she knows magic. Miss Hayward, as she's magical, she's figured this out. And so, and like little triumphs like that. Yes, it was a struggle. That first day when they were writing on the screen, I was so irritated. I think I ended class early. I was like, this is just too much. And the next day, I put my cape on and my superhero hat, and I flew into that situation. And I was the hero of that situation because I'm like, you are not going to beat me. I'm smarter than you. I'm wiser than you. I'm going to figure out who you are, little one. So when I did, that was a little triumph for me. And so big. Like those little triumphs like pushed me through. And I've been online and I've called parents. Can you please make Amber turn her camera on? And so you see the parent come into the room, and so yes, I had those moments too. It makes me happy to hear that other educators, even in a completely different area of the world, was experiencing the exact same thing that I was experiencing.
Yeah, it really is. I also coach young people. Mentor also, because I'm a mentor to young people. And the age group is from 6, is primary school. Mm-hmm. And some of the challenge was so interesting. It's like telling them to put on the camera, they're putting it up to the ceiling, they're ignoring you, they're actually turning around, ignoring when you say, can you face the screen? No. The challenges were, oh my goodness, the challenges were heavy.
Yes, I had to do a complete reset. I reset my classroom for Zoom, and I established guidelines and expectations for my students because I never told them not to write on the screen, except when it happened. So I was being reactive instead of proactive. So I wrote down all of the things that irritated me or that annoyed me or that made my class not go smooth. I wrote them all down. And I talked to my students and I told them, these are the things that you should be doing during a Zoom lesson. Like, because I had students eating lunch. I had playing with baby brothers and baby sisters were in the camera in class with us. So it was just, but they didn't know. They had never done this before.
Exactly, yeah.
And I was frustrated with them, but I had set no guidelines. And never would I ever walk into class on the first day of school and just sit and start teaching a lesson. Like, okay, let's go. You know, I would set those expectations. So I was like, wait a minute. I need to go back and set these expectations for virtual online learning so that my students will understand, like, this is serious. This is what I expect from them. Yeah. And then I can expect them to do what I expect. But if you never tell them, they're kids. They're going to make rules up on their own. They were changing backgrounds and they were in the chat. They were chatting with each other. That was a part I had to figure out how to make it where they couldn't chat with each other. They could not talk to one another. The only person they could speak to was me. So, I mean, like different. I had to learn everything to have a well-managed Zoom class, because I believe the management aspect is just as important as it is in the classroom.
Yeah. And it's interesting though, thank you for that. What is so interesting in the sense that when we haven't put ground rules down at the beginning, they have no idea of what is expected. Because as you rightly say, the first day we enters the classroom, you are actually writing your ground rules and your expectations. So therefore, that wasn't done. And it's interesting though, because when you actually set them, especially on the online platform, when something didn't go right, when the student actually figure something out that you had to go into YouTube to find the answers, etc., you then have to have a new set of expectation, because every week, every week you have to be saying, oh, a few things came up which I need to talk to you guys about.
Yes. I've learned something new, another way. Yes, exactly. And I explained that to them too. I constantly let them know, like, Miss Hayward is learning, as are you. Like, we're both learning. We're in this together. I don't have it all together. I don't know everything. I'm going to make mistakes. You're going to be able to help me with some things. I'll be able to help you. So I just kind of let them know, like, for a moment, I'm going to look like I'm all over the place, because I'm not grounded in this, well. So guidelines did change, like rules had to change. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, that's cute. I was playing with little brothers and little sisters on the camera, and we were goo goo gaga, and then, oh, he's so cute. And then I realized, like, wait, this is taking up my precious time for teaching. So we can't have brothers and sisters on camera when we are teaching a lesson. So I guess they're like, this lady is crazy. One minute she says, she's playing with my baby brother and sister. Then the next minute she's like saying he has to go. So yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Because as fast as you're figuring things out, the next Monday you have to say, okay, there are a few things we can no longer do because it doesn't work, so it's like a constant, increasing and adapting and things like that. It's just been a challenge all around. And we've learned, because even when the students have done something and we don't know how to figure it out, and then we go into YouTube have been my tutorial, have been my teacher, have been my everything.
Yes, definitely. It has been the master professional development.
Exactly. Exactly. And the beautiful thing about it is you have so many different YouTubers who are telling you the same thing but differently.
Yes.
And then you'll find the easy way. It's like me trying to connect Zoom to Facebook. The first time I did it, I found someone who told me. The next time when I do it again, I found someone else. And then the third person said, okay, once you actually set it up, you don't have to set it up again. I thought, whoa, It is so amazing. It's so amazing that, we've actually had no option than learn as we go along and take our students with us as we're learning.
Yeah.
Another thing that, in terms of you being a mother with 3 under 10 children.
I can't. God bless my husband. My husband is an educator as well. Okay. He teaches high school. Okay. And so his experience is a little different from my experience. But he had a little bit more freedom. So he would tackle the children while I did my lessons. Sometimes they would allow that to happen. Other times they would jump in and you would see their face pop in a moment, or they would interrupt the lesson crying or screaming, mommy. It was kind of unpredictable with, what would happen. But it was a challenge. And in some instances, I felt as though my children kind of got the short end of the stick because I was devoting more time to my students. So their teachers were giving assignments and I wasn't able to sit with them the way I wanted to. And I have the abilities and the background to be able to teach them, but I didn't have the time to do it because I was focused more so on my students. So I just, that part I kind of feel guilty about. But hopefully if we ever have to do the online platform again, I'll be able to plan a little bit better and organize ourselves a little bit better so that my own children will not be without because I am devoted to my job or my teaching. Because it is, I mean, it's really difficult. My kids are on all different levels to make sure that they are all getting what they need within the day. There's not enough time in the day for that to happen. So
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's one of the things of being a parent and teaching other people's children.
yeah.
Because even though mine is 14, I also feel that in terms of the amount of time that you devote isn't, because you're so concentrating on teaching online. For me, the plus is I only taught online for 2 weeks, which was quite a big plus for me.
Mm.
But I know other educators who taught throughout the session, you
Yeah.
know, and it meant that their children really suffered because some of them even say to me the fact that when they come off teaching online, they're so exhausted that,
Yeah.
to actually teach your own child is like, oh God, can
Right.
we ask, and it is sad that that have to happen. But
Yeah.
because you're so big in some schools that they want you to teach in the same way that you actually taught in the physical classroom, from 9 o'clock, log on from 9 o'clock until 3:15. And it didn't
Wow.
lend itself to you actually having a child at home who
No.
also need your attention, who also
Right.
need to, who also need to be taught.
Right. And you have to feed them. You don't have a
Exactly.
cafeteria worker. You don't have the janitorial staff. Like you're
Exactly.
cleaning up. Yes, your kids are at home, but you also have to have those breaks to where you have to do the things that somebody else is doing in a regular school setting. I told
Exactly.
my husband was the cafeteria manager. He would prepare lunch. And I would tell him I'm the janitorial staff because I'm cleaning up behind them. So so
That's the thing, isn't it? And the sad thing about it is a lot of people tend to forget some educators are parents,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So as much as they're busy teaching your child or your children, they also have to be seen to their child because your parents at home, you are there supporting your child while I'm teaching your child. But who
Yeah.
is there to support my child? Because
Right.
there's sometimes as you say in your family, there are two educators, and you're fortunate because both of you are teaching at different times. It
Yes.
the other way where both of you needed to be teaching the same time.
Right. Or if he wasn't an educator and he actually was an essential worker who had to go out to work, then
Exactly.
how would that look? I mean, it was, yeah, I can't even imagine that.
You see, that's the thing about it. It was challenging, especially, in terms of having children, etc. But you were fortunate because you had your husband who was there. I had other educators who, as you rightly identify, their other half were essential workers. And one of them said to me, she couldn't put her camera on because she was breastfeeding while she's teaching the
Right.
class. you know,
Exactly. Exactly.
and that's the reality.
Yes. Yes. And you still have and a lot of the struggle with working from home is that everything that needs to be done is right in your face all day long. So at least when I'm away at school and I'm in my school setting, I can think about the things that I need to do at home, but they're not like in front of me.
Exactly.
So I found myself attempting to do things that I needed to do around the house while trying to teach and trying to manage kids. Like I was taking on too much because I wasn't separating my time. Like it was separated for me when I would go into the school
Mm,
building.
mm.
So I wasn't able to wash clothes or fix that picture, I don't know, that's hanging crooked, that I've been wanting to fix for forever. Um, I wasn't able to do that because I wasn't in that environment. But when
Yeah.
you're home all day, I found myself like stretching myself, like
Mm.
trying to do everything. and failing because it's not possible. You have
Yeah.
to have that time that's just work time.
Mm,
You have to have that time that's home time or
mm.
family time, and you have to have like a separation between the two, because if not, trying to merge all of that together, I feel is mentally draining, and it makes you feel like you're not enough as a woman. um,
Mhm.
because women have the women tend to take on more of the burden of like household things
Mm.
in some instances. So um you have that burden of doing that, but then when you're home, it's like, oh, I could do all of this. But then you beat yourself up when you're not able to, not realizing that just because you're home and you're working at home does not mean you have all this extra free time, because you're still working,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It is so very true. That's why I think it is very important, to separate the home life from the work life. The first week I was exactly as you say, like doing all of these things. I'm thinking, oh yes. And then you realize, hold on, I'm getting burnout. Where's the self-care I'm talking about? I am
right.
talking to other educators about the importance of self-care. Hello, I need to actually be
Right,
implementing this. This makes no sense. So then I
exactly.
decided, you know what, forget about cleaning this house.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a priority anymore.
Mm-mm.
So something had to give. And I'm afraid at that time, the cleaning had to give because there was nobody visiting anyway. It was COVID.
Nobody, right. And I was still trying to maintain. And it got to the point where I was like asking my kids, do you have clean underwear? Okay, well, we're good. Like, put on the clean underwear. Like, you may not, I mean, it's just, I was trying to live like I was still leaving the house when it
Yeah,
wasn't really necessary. And it was
yeah,
creating a lot of stress for me,
yeah.
trying to do everything. And not to mention, we went from, because there was a time in New York where everything was shut down. So we weren't able to really go out to eat or call in food. So you were cooking 3 meals a day, like you were doing breakfast, lunch, dinner all day, cleaning up behind that's not normally that's not your life. Like, like that's not normal. So
Exactly.
that was an extra responsibility that I don't think it registered with me. And then with having kids home all day long, they
Mm,
create a mess. My
mhm.
kids were building forts in the living room, and Legos were everywhere. And I was so stressed trying to make sure that, the house stayed neat. And like I said, I grew as an educator, but I also grew as a mom. I learned like how to not make a big deal out of small things. If
Yeah,
they made a mess in the living room and that was their way of having fun, then let it be. But I
yeah,
also learned how to teach them to clean up after they're done, and me not take on the responsibility of cleaning up behind them. So I began to put more responsibility on my 6-year old and my 7-year old and my 3-year old to teach them how to be more responsible for their own messes. I taught them how to load a dishwasher, or gave them home responsibilities like picking up, like emptying the garbage in the house. And so like I said, like, and this was not something that I was doing before. I was doing everything. But being home with them, I began to realize, like, hey, why are you doing that? You're trying to teach online. You're teaching them at school. Like, these kids are more than capable of doing some of the smaller things. So put them
mm,
to work. Like, get them, take out their garbage, have them make up their beds every day. Like, doing those things that helped me out, helped me tremendously, because it took
mhm.
some pressure off of me.
Yeah, exactly. And then you started, for me, while I was there, I felt that every day, for the first week, every day I had to be sweeping and mopping. And really,
I
by the
know.
second week, I'm thinking, hold on, that's not necessary. There's nobody coming into this house. Because at one time, my daughter said to me, you're so extra. Why are you cleaning every day? Is anybody coming to the house? And it's actually done in my head that, hold on, there's nobody coming in this house. So why are you cleaning every day? It makes no sense. And why are you doing the 3 meals and the hello? No, you don't need to. Everybody have to see for themselves. By the second week, I was very good at it. The second week, the house did not even see the mop and the dust, and it still said, the house is still here, right? You haven't gone anywhere.
Yes. And you had your mental stability. You were not stressed worrying about everything.
Exactly. And it's like things that wasn't necessary, because it's like, but why are you cleaning every day? And I didn't have an answer. Okay, I just said, oh, the house was dirty.
My husband asked me that too. What are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? I'm like, because it needs to be, and because that was the way that I've always done things. Like, I couldn't get out of my own mindset and way of embracing this new way of doing things. And part of that was to let some things go and not stress about, the small things.
Yeah. Yeah. I have learned that so very well, that the house is no longer a priority. I'm not even looking at it anymore. Right. Because, you then realize, hold on, no, by the second week I realized, hold on, the children are right. There's nobody coming here. So why are you cleaning every day?
Exactly.
What's the point, It's, whereas when you're in school, you don't have that, because you actually shut off. But when you're at home, you find that you're doing all of that.
Yes.
And it's not necessary. There's no point in it. But after the second week, I actually learned and actually realized, hold on, this self-care you're preaching about, you need to take some of that in, my darling. Yes. And I'm thinking, yeah, I had to. Because as educators, we feel that we could fix everything. Hell no.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah. We feel that we could fix everything. We also feel that we have to be in control of everything.
Yes.
And it doesn't. On this online platform, as I said, the student decide to become different, to differentiate for themselves. They feel what didn't work for them, they were not doing it. So when we go back in the classroom, we'll be even more creative. This also means that when we had one way of the student presenting the work, saying just, okay, I've given you the assignment, you need to hand in the assignment in terms of paper, etc. Now the student hand in the assignment whichever way they want to.
Videos, text messages, they really got creative. I tell you that. Yes. Yes. And I love to see the videos of them talking things through. And you know what? Like, you talked about differentiation, and that's it right there. So for my student who's not able to put his thoughts to paper, but he's able to verbalize it just by talking about it, why have I not, as an educator, been more receptive to that? Why do I box him in and make him do things a certain way? Like in every field of work and life, he won't have to write beautiful essays. He may just be, his gift may be just a verbiage and being able to communicate, So we put our kids in these boxes, right? And so we want them to fit. And if they don't, we're like, oh, we have to differentiate for them so that they can learn the way that we want them to learn. But in all actuality, like, I learned that it was okay for him to turn in a video, because what he said verbally showed me that he had an understanding of the concept, just as well as the student who was able to write me a 2-page essay explaining her thought process, or another student who was able to build something and use the building model to show me how he represented multiplication using an array with Lego blocks, So he wasn't able to write it out or solve the problem or do it the traditional way, but it showed me that he understood by using a visual model. So, like, a lot of teaching during COVID teaches you how to step outside of the little box that you've created, and you want all of the students to fit into it, because that's the way that it has always happened. So being able to say to yourself, okay, I'll try this a different way. That's a challenge for most teachers.
Mm.
But once you go ahead and go full force with it, you'll see that these kids are so creative. And that child that you thought was behind in class because he didn't fit your model, maybe one of the most brilliant students in your class.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. It have actually made me really think in terms of differentiation, because one day I was on the platform and I was just thinking about it. I think, oh my goodness, the students have actually forced us in a corner. They have, because they're saying, hold on, the way we, as you rightly say, we actually put them in this box and saying, well, this is the way we've always done things. This is traditional, that you should hand in your assignment. Your assignment should be typed and handed. Hell no. There's some students who struggle to actually type this assignment. And online platform, they're showing us that I'm not even typing this assignment. I'm just going to show the educator either by me acting it out, or by me talking about it. And if she doesn't want it, too bad, right? That's basically it.
Exactly. And I think that is more than okay. And I just question myself and I wonder, like, how many children have been labeled as being below level because they couldn't do it our way? Like, how many kids' lives haven't been able to reach their full potential because of what an educator told them, like because they were different or they did things in a different way.
Yeah.
And they needed, this is what, because based on my years of teaching and my expertise, you don't look like the rest of the kids in class who are quote unquote intelligent or smart. So you're not, and I'm gonna do this for you because you're not like the others. So I'm gonna move you over in this area, and I've labeled you, and that label sticks with that child throughout grade school and throughout high school, and that may have even crippled that kid. And that kid said, "I'm not smart enough to go to college because of this label that has been placed on me." And that could have stagnated the growth of some child who could have been something brilliant. And not necessarily, I'm not saying that every child needs to go to college, but every kid does need to believe in themselves. And believe that because if we can as educators put that seed in them that they are amazing and they are unique and they can do things and they're worthy and they have power within them, then what result will we get out of our kids, our students? Like, what result will we get from them if we stop putting these labels on them that are based on labels that were put on us, or labels? Because even now, as an educator, if you don't have X amount of degrees, or if you don't have your doctorate, or if it's like people listen to you more based on the titles that you have. You know more. But that's just the way that I feel like society has trained us. But that's not a sign of education. I mean, that's not a sign of intelligence all the time. It's just not. So I worry about that, and I try to be mindful of that in my classroom. I'm not perfect. I still label kids like, oh gosh, this is a struggling student, and I still do that in my mind, but I really want to move away from that. And I want to be able to pull out the strengths of every student and to show them their strengths and make their strengths bigger than their weaknesses, so that they will forever see their strengths and not their weaknesses, and build on their strengths. Because if you teach a child to build on their strengths, then what they can accomplish, oh my God, it will be, it's going to be absolutely amazing and mind-blowing. And we have that ability as educators to make kids believe in themselves and in their ability.
It is so true. Thank you. Because you see, as educators, we know that we are able to plant the seed, and we have to actually find the brilliance in the child. And this the COVID have actually forced us to become so innovative that the students are also very innovative. So they're actually beginning to blossom in a way that we never saw them before. So when we actually go back to the classroom, we need to be prepared to pull all the stops out, because some students who we thought that could do things one way, when they actually give us the information, we realize they're using something totally different than they've ever used in the classroom. And we need to embrace that and allow them to do that.
Yeah. And I worried about my really high performing students, because they were the ones who it was very hard for them to adjust to the online platform.
Yeah.
And to me, that like spoke volumes to me, because I'm like, wow, like these are the students that we as educators label as the most intelligent group of the class based on these test scores and their intellectual ability to answer questions in a written format. But when you throw something at them that's different, or they have to critically think or figure things out or be innovative, they freeze. Like, and they want you to take them through the steps and show them how to do it, because these students, they are intelligent in their own way, but it worries me because they're not as innovative as I would like them to be. I wanted them not only to be smart, so to speak, and like be able to answer written questions, but I also want them to be able to make adjustments in life and to be creative and be innovative. It was my students the students that I differentiated for, the ones who were able to shine the most during this time. Like those are the students who kind of surprised me. So we have to be able to see our students not through one lens, but to see them as individuals, and not, labeling kids as this is an intellect, this is the smart group, and then this is the group that's not so smart. Well, in some aspects, the smart group is not so smart in certain areas, and the not so smart group is not, brilliant in areas. So we have to figure out a way to meet kids' needs without like labeling them, because when you do that, I think you kind of cripple them. And the way you see things.
Because what we do is you actually stunt the growth, because you're actually saying, okay, you actually put limitation on them.
Yes, based on what you believe, your own perspective. Or test scores, so they're brilliant people. I just don't believe Einstein would have been a regular kid in class. I just believe, like, if I had Einstein in my class, like he may not have been like that average student that got all the answers correct. He may have been that student that wanted to use his hands and create things and try things out. And what would that have been like if his teacher told him, no, you have to do it this way, because this is the way that intelligent people look. This is how intelligent people do things, so.
Yeah, it is so very true, because we have this idea of tradition. This is how we've always done it. And the sad thing about it, that tend to be more with a lot more mature educators who've been in the industry for a length of time, who are not very innovative. However, this COVID-19 have forced them all, to be creative and be innovative. I had an educator was saying to me, I wanted her to come on the platform, but she hadn't come. She doesn't want to come on. That time she hated the online platform. Really? She said she hated it, and because of that, she decided she doesn't want to go back into teaching, because in her district they are going to be doing the hybrid setup, and she doesn't want it.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. And I'm trying to say to her, the reason why you hate it, you haven't given yourself space You haven't reflected enough and identify what the plus you've got from it and maximize the plus.
Right.
Because it's so easy for us to see the negative, like putting dye, in a bottle, in a whole jug of water, a little bit of
Right.
dye. It's like that's the negative. You put little negative, but it just, you allow it to spread because
Yeah.
you're failing to see that the negative need to be in perspective.
Yes.
And you need to see what the positive were from the online platform. And if you don't, it means that all you're pouring on it is the negative. And believe me, that life is such, there is positive and negative ions. There is no way that you have more negative ions than positive ions. I'm afraid they're both the same. So it's for us to actually look in it and find it.
Yes.
And if you don't look, you wouldn't find it. If you don't look, all you're going to see that is how negative being on the online platform is. And it's not. There have been so much growth on this online platform for us as well as our students, because
Right.
in terms of innovation, in terms of creativity, in terms of so many, the critical thinking, even us, it enabled us to even think more critical than we used to.
Right. Exactly.
It's given us all of that. And it actually have allowed us to think even more on our feet than we used to. It actually make us go and, okay, there's nobody you could ask to help you. Good old YouTube. Let me,
Right.
let me negotiate YouTube. And this person said, but it's not very clear. Let me find another person who want to say to me, Clara.
Yes.
So that's what it's actually done to us. Force us to find answers that we would have been quite happy not to find.
Right.
Because you're in the classroom and you're happy not to find it, whatever came up, and that was it. But the fact is, on the online platform, you realize that the students are going much faster than you. Hello, there's no way, because if you have a class that's been disruptive, as you find the situation when they're writing on the screen, you think, hell no, I am going to stay up all night to make sure that tomorrow, that's not going to happen.
They will not conquer me.
Exactly. So,
Yes.
you were forced to go and find the answer to make sure you find a way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you had to step out of your comfort zone, because too often in the physical classroom, we remain in our comfort zone.
Yes.
And it's interesting because I remember when PowerPoint came on, when PowerPoint came and so many educators had to use PowerPoint. I was a PowerPoint queen. I loved it. And everybody's saying to me in the department, gosh, you love PowerPoint. Yes, I felt that it made my life easy.
Right. And it does.
A lot of educators, they were not even using PowerPoint. They hated the PowerPoint. For me, I was in seventh heaven. PowerPoint was it for me. Every single lesson, I was on PowerPoint because I felt that it was interesting. And I also got the students to start using PowerPoint and start presenting through PowerPoint. But some educators had no idea and they were not interested in doing it.
Right.
And I found it very sad because they were not prepared to step out of the comfort zone.
Right. Right.
And this online platform, this COVID-19 have forced everybody, whether or not you want to remain in your comfort zone, sorry, you cannot stay there because you have some student to teach,
Right.
And they're waiting on you.
Right.
So you cannot say, well, hold on, I'm still in my comfort zone. I don't know how to figure it out. Hell no, you had no choice.
Right.
Yeah, so it's actually, it was, I found it really, really fascinating because it made teachers go back to when they first became educators, where they were very flexible. They stepped out of the comfort zone because they're a new teacher and they did all of that. So it actually took them back to becoming a new teacher again.
Yeah.
Because they had to step out of this new era, they had to step out of their comfort zone. It did not even matter the age you were, you had no choice.
Yeah.
And that could only be a good thing because knowing educators, they were quite happy plodding on.
And leaving students behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, not meeting the needs of students. So hopefully teaching during COVID will awaken what the areas of education that needed some more enlightenment and change our mindset and the way that we do things. Even thinking about from now on, like if I have a student that's absent or sick at home, I can live stream class. So now, and I never thought about that before. Exactly. So that student will not miss school, you know, like little things like that, or even putting during small group instruction so that child won't miss that small group instruction for the day. They can see what's going on. So that's something that's small, and that's something that we could have been doing a long. Zoom is not new. You know, like WebEx isn't new. Like these things have been around.
Yeah.
So have they been utilized to their? And we used Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams has that option, but we didn't think as educators to do that before. You know, ways to bring students into a setting, but they're not actually in that setting. You know, so I'm excited about the future of education, where it's going to go, just to hear how COVID is going to change the mindset of educators and of students, because we're not going to be able to do things the way that we've always done them. So it's going to force you out of your comfort zone, because even if you try to do things the way that they've always been done, I feel like you may get like left behind. So you're gonna have to move it along. And you're going to have to try different things, because I know I am. You know, I'm not going to let now, if you know, after we get a vaccination, which God willing, hopefully soon, for this for the COVID, I'm not going to lose Zoom. I'm not going to move away from the use of technology in the classroom now. You know, I'm going to take virtual field trips with my students. I'm going to depend more on online learning for homework, even to make sure that, you know, where I can actually check, instead of checking their homework the next day, I can check it that night. They go home, they do their homework. Homework is due at 11 p.m. and I can check it and give them feedback the next day, which is great for time management, you know, as opposed to checking homework the next day in class. Even setting up meetings with parents who are working and who can't come to parent-teacher conferences. We can jump on Zoom now, and you know, I can talk to you face to face about your child and show you different work. I mean, it's just a new door that we can walk through to reach and teach students and connect with each other. And I don't want that to be lost. I want to be able to elaborate on that and figure out, you know, new ways of doing things without having a negative, the negativity of it to overload my mind, so that I can't see all the positive aspects of what's happening. So I'm really hopeful. I'm hopeful that this will bring about some change in education. As you were saying, it's so needed right now.
Thank you. There's no way education could ever go back to where it used to be. Hell no, there's no way. Even though you might have some educators that want it to go back, there's no way it's going to go back. No. There's no way. Because we have the students forcing us to do things differently, because they've already experienced the difference.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, they're going to be forcing us. If some, you know, I know some educators are going to say, oh, well, you know, that was on the online platform. Now I'm going to do it how it used to be in the classroom. Hell no. The students are going to force you to do it how you now did it. Because for them, they experience something new, they experience something exciting, they experience something that takes less time. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can you give me 3 tips?
3 tips for what? For
it could be anything in terms of relationship to being how being on the online platform make you feel.
Okay.
how you lost in terms of connection, emotional. There's so many things. We've said so many
Yes.
things.
Yeah. I would my tip number one is to embrace change, and at your own pace. I had to take baby steps because if you look at it the holistically all at one time, it can be overwhelming. But if you take it bit by bit, piece by piece, try something new one day or one week, and then try something new another week. Not trying to take everything in at once. I think that's helpful. I also think that tip number two is to do everything with your students in mind, with the heart of an educator. I try to teach my students how I want my my own personal children's teachers to teach them, to love them in their way, to give them the very best of me, as I would want those educators to do for my kids. And I guess the third tip is just for educators, especially women or female educators, to take time for yourself and really, whether it's over this time, I have read books. I do bike rides. I haven't rode a bike in God knows when, but I go and I ride bikes with my family, and I try cooking new things. I feel like as educators, sometimes we have the weight of our family and our students and the responsibility of it all on our shoulders. And if we don't have a release or find something that we really like to do or take the time to learn who we are, then we're not going to be good for our family, for our students. So I feel like that's a good tip. And for me, reading books for me has been it's been really great, because I try to read a book that has something to do with the educational aspect of me, to develop me as an educator. I read like a book for fun. I read a religious book because I'm a Christian, to build me, to help me to be a better person. So I am feeding into myself. So I feel like you have to feed into yourself so that you can be the best person, educator, mom, daughter, grandmother that you can be, friend, that you can be.
Thank you. It is so very true. I agree with everything you say in terms of the self-care aspect, because it is so important that as educators and as women educators, that we actually self-care, self-love, self-care. Those are so very important,
Yes.
because too often it gets neglected. And once it's neglected once, it continues until, way down the line, you realize that you have not eaten, you haven't taken care of yourself,
Yeah.
and things like that, because it's quite easy to forget. So as educators, we really do need to remember the importance of self-care, because you cannot feed anybody from an empty vessel. If you haven't got anything in that vessel, there is nothing you could feed them with. So in order for you to help your student and support your student and your colleagues and the parents, you need to fill up that cup.
Yes.
And too often people saying that self-care is selfish when you're thinking about yourself first. Hell no. It's lack of self-care that is selfish, because when I say lack of self-care is selfish, because when you don't take care of yourself and you become sick, someone else have to be looking after you, and someone else have to be taking care of your class, right?
Yep.
So, one day I said to myself, because someone would self-care is selfish. Hell no. And I started thinking, no, because when you're sick, someone else have to step in the classroom, in your family life. So that is selfishness. So when you're actually taking care of yourself, that is precious. That is taking care of you. That is important. That should be the priority, because you don't want to be ill. You want to make sure that your cup is always full, that you're reaching out from a full cup. So that you're well to do that. You could only do that when you start taking care of yourself and making sure you give yourself the best of everything. It's like falling in love with you, like how you'll fall in love with your husband or your partner,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
You need to fall in love with you. No one else would fall in love with you as much as you would.
Over and over again, because
Exactly.
the me that I was in my 20s is not the me that I was in my 30s, and it's not the me that I'll be in my 40s. So it's different. It's different layers to
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah,
And if you
exactly.
don't take the time to get to know the
Yeah,
different layers of yourself, you find yourself struggling to be someone that you're not anymore.
exactly. Because
So, and if you
you
don't
move
know
on.
that,
Yeah,
yeah, if you don't take the time to realize who you are in this moment in your
yeah,
life, then you become very frustrated, because I
yeah.
feel like I tried to be who I was in my 20s, or who I was before I had kids, or before I had a husband, and that's not who I am anymore. And that constantly changes as you grow in life, as it should, because you should
Mm,
be growing. So
exactly.
self-care is extremely important in understanding who you are at
Mm,
every different level of your life. And
mm.
you have to realize that, because I didn't even realize I liked riding bikes anymore. I mean, I'm like, what's that all about? And I love it now. And then I didn't realize that I liked readings. I remember liking to read when I was younger,
Mm.
but life happens and you get so busy and you don't, you forget about that. And you come back to it and you're like, oh, I do love doing this.
Mm, mm.
So taking the time to really get to know yourself is so
Yeah.
important to me.
Yep. Yep. It is so important, so very important. And this is what COVID have done to parents, make
Yeah.
parents know their children because
Yeah.
they did not know their little diamonds because they were too busy. I understand that they had to work, so they were busy working. But at the same time, when you have the time, it doesn't even matter. You have the 10 minutes, the 20 minutes, you use that on the children because remember,
Yes.
they didn't ask you to come here. So the fact
Right.
that you brought them here, you also need to make the time to be with them. And COVID have actually forced them together
Yes.
that, some children realize they don't like the parents. Parents realize they don't like the children very much. But whatever the outcome, it actually forced you to know that because
Yes.
we had your children from the start of the day to the end of the day, and then you saw them in the evening time. You didn't communicate much with them. Then they went to bed, and it became a cycle. Now
Yeah.
there was nowhere to go.
No.
No,
No. No.
you
I
just
had
so
parents.
exactly,
Yes, they were like,
exactly,
I'm bringing her to you, Miss Hayward. Nope, you're not bringing her to me. You're going to keep her right here. And y'all going to
exactly,
figure this out. Now you
exactly.
understand what I was telling you in
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And you see, information where parents say, no, they can't wait for school to open. They can't wait for the children to go back to school. It's interesting. I love being on holidays because I love my children being home with me. I
I
just
do
love it.
too.
I'm probably one of these parents who, I just think it's nice. It's lovely.
I do
And,
too. I
and then
have
you
frustrating moments, but I do. Overall, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, you do. Because, when parents say, oh, I can't wait for school to open. Oh, it's half term. I can't wait for school to open for them to go back. Me, I wish half term was 2 weeks instead of 1 week. I love the children. I've always loved the children being at home with me because it's just nice. You get to do things. You get to know little things they like that you didn't realize they now like. It's just really
Yes.
nice. You get to know your children during those periods.
Yep.
And I just think it's just fantastic. And now COVID have actually forced these parents to get to know the children. And I must say, some of them are not liking what they see.
Definitely.
But it's like reminding them that you brought them here, so you need to find ways of working with it.
They're
You've
your
got to
first
work with them.
responsibility. They are
Exactly.
your first responsibility. Yep.
Exactly, exactly. And the fact that you didn't take time in the beginning, this is what you've got now. So you need to go back and start again if you can.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for coming onto the online platform. I apologize again for coming on late, but there's sometimes I don't have any control over this platform.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how loving and tender I speak to the computer, it does what it wants to do. You know, it's just one of these things.
Yeah.
So please, I would like you to like, share, and comment. When you're commenting, I would go into the chat and comment and answer your questions, etc. Feel free to message me if there's something you want me to clarify. But for the next few weeks, I'll be coming online with yet again some other educators who are going to be sharing the real story with you so that you know exactly what it's like to be a teacher teaching on the online platform during this time. It's not what the media are telling you. It's that the media is saying that educators don't want to go back to work, etc. It seems as if it's the massive. It's not the massive. As usual, it could be a small percentage, but yet still, educators are constantly labeled as they don't want to go back to work. You know, they're lazy. What's wrong with them? There's nothing wrong with us. We just feel that care need to be in place, and the government and the bravest prime minister, etc., need to make sure they take enough steps and they're covering all the areas and they're aware of what we're talking about. Because after all, we are the front line in the classroom. They are not the front line in the classroom. So they don't have a clue what we're talking about. Because the interesting thing about it is, I keep on thinking about it, how it's going to work in terms of cleaning the toilet when we know as educators, the toilets have never been cleaned properly. So I'm not too sure how they're going to be cleaning this toilet unless they put someone to clean it every 20 minutes. Because normally when you go to the toilet, they say the toilet is clean every day, once a day someone is on there. And when you look at it, it really does beg questions. So now it'd be interesting to see how they're going to be doing that. If someone's going to be there every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, it's going to be interesting, because these are all the things that educators, we actually fret about, because we know what goes on in this classroom, in the school, in the toilet, in the playground, in the corridor. We know that. The government, prime minister, these people don't know because they've never been in there long enough to know. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. That's not a moan, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
I have to say all the time, it's not a moan, it's just a fact, because people very quickly to say that educators are always moaning. We are not moaning, we're just pointing things out as we see it, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Anyway, take care, everybody. Good night, good evening, good morning, wherever you have a fantastic